Welcome to episode 11 of the JustUs Podcast, everybody. I'm here joining with the likes of Eternal, Fred, and Tobbs.
Hello.
Well, guys.
And for today's episode, we'll be talking about Power Rangers Samurai on its 10th anniversary, the 2010 Transformers War for Cybertron game, our 2016 Deadpool movie, and last year's Sonic the Hedgehog movie. As always, we're going in order, and we'll be talking about Samurai. So, Power Rangers Samurai, the first Neo Saban season we've got back in 2011. It was made after the Walt Disney Company sold the franchise back to Saban. And let me tell you, it was pretty exciting. I was ready for a new season of Power Rangers. I watched Shinkenger when it was around, and I was kind of excited to see what we get for the PR adaptation. We got a primetime premiere, and I was interested. I kind of liked it, but look, how do I say this? Samurai is a weird season to talk about compared to the rest of the Neo Saban era, or in PR in general.
Okay.
When was the last season of Samurai?
Well,
Last
okay,
season?
before Samurai, there was RPM. Now, RPM is like the peak of Power Rangers. It was pretty much the like the last season where we got all this sort of dynamic character development, action, storytelling that began with In Space. Now, from 1998 to 2009, we got ourselves nearly a decade's worth of great PR seasons. I loved Time Force, I loved Wild Force, Ninja Storm, Dino Thunder SPD are my favorite seasons ever. And,
Damn.
like,
Probably one of my favorites, or most favorite, Jungle Fury.
yeah, that one's too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of energy in that season. But with Samurai, we go from this sort of cool show to watch that even older fans would appreciate to this. Which, you know, a lot of people act like Power Rangers is sort of like kiddie thing.
Yeah.
That's most often anyone thought, or at least immediate kind of idea when you hear the word Power Rangers, like when you think of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I started to see that with Samurai. And you know, it's not a bad thing when you want to start in a season where it's kind of light or basic. But with Samurai, what made it not work was the fact that it tried to capture that sort of 90s cheesy charm to it, but in 2011. And it just looks so weird. Now, the story itself is decent. You know, like, it's about ancient warriors that use these powers, and now the current generation of Samurai Rangers must go up against him. So far, like, it's one of the rare examples of there being other Rangers before Mighty Morphin. And, you know, I can go on about how funny it is to see MMPR only fanboys bitch about that, but that's kind of a good example of world building. I like that. But as for our current cast, well, what do you think of when you hear the word samurai?
Cool dudes.
Ancient and honorable warriors through Japanese culture and history.
Yeah.
That's boring. Cool dudes is better.
Okay, respect the history, man.
Well, with samurai, we have ourselves 3 people, or like 5 individuals who have nothing to do with Japanese culture. Now, the Pink Ranger, Mia, is of Asian descent, but you have an African American, you have a Hispanic person, you have a white person, 2 white people. One's got brown hair, the other one's got blonde hair. And it's kind of amusing. Now, of course, you can say that their ancestors probably had kids with non-Japanese people. But it's kind of amusing when you see that at first and think, wait, are they meant to be part of this sort of ritual fest or some sort of heritage, or is this just some sort of like what?
Yeah, it has no explanation, let's say.
Yeah.
It's
Just random late samurais.
And of
Yeah,
course,
right there.
and of course, you have like the Gold Ranger, who is pretty much kind of like trying to be the next Dora Explorer, as he usually says Spanish words like "excelente" or "vámonos." which, like, it's kind of amusing when they say stuff like that, but at the same time, it's like, we get it, dude. You're Hispanic. Like, that's cool, but, like, that can't be your only character trait, man. But, of course, he's apparently friends with the Red Ranger, Jaden.
Yeah, of course.
Now, in terms of visuals, Shinkenger looks great, and I think Samurai looks great as well. The fight sequences look good. They don't use their fists, they mostly use their swords. And this is our first season in 16:9, widescreen, high definition. Samurai on your TV will look great. Of course, not to say that the older seasons before Samurai looked bad, it's just that this is our first HD season, and I'm quite happy about that. But one thing that always made me laugh was just how long the morph sequences were. Like, okay, the morph sequences from the older seasons before Disney were kind of basic, but Samurai just took way too long, man. It's like, oh, right, we get ourselves like our morph jingle, we get our phones, which try to look like paintbrushes, but they don't fold like in the Japanese show Shinkenger, except for Lauren's. And okay, I know I was about to say this for later, but like, really, go Samurai?
Yeah, I do remember the show just hearing the Rangers. Go Samurai.
Yeah, I'll get to that more in a bit. I'll get to that in a minute, says Chris Hansen.
Go, Diego, go!
Right.
That sounds cool, not gonna lie. I wouldn't be surprised if Antonio said that in the show. But like the morph sequences took way too long to go through, and even one of the characters says, "Oh, that's one of the longest costume changes ever." And when you have someone say that out loud, you know something is wrong with their morph sequence.
Oh, they're self-aware.
Yep. And yeah, like, our story is fine. I will say that for the first season, it kind of gets a little wonky, like kind of fillery and sort of basic. But to the credit of Super Samurai, which I don't like that name, at least there's more of an ongoing story. Like, like with the black box, the new powers that they have, Jaden being replaced by Lauren at one point, and Master's android going up and doing his revenge against humanity. Like, that's fine. But the first season felt sort of backwards from the past few seasons we got at PR. Which wouldn't be a bad thing, but like at the same time, I need more layers going on in my story. Like, you don't have to make this like some sort of deep Watchmen-esque sort of TV show. But like, keep me engaged, man. That's why I kind of gave up with Samurai when I first saw it. And, honestly, like revisiting it years later, I don't really feel bad for skipping out on it. But at the very least, Super Samurai was a little more enjoyable for that.
Well, I mean, like, at least it still holds off even from how much of Power Rangers influence kept itself during that time in 2011. Because it was pretty strong for most the shows just within a time where it would broadcast also Power Rangers, like those coming from Cartoon Network or Teletoon. Like, Power Rangers was like on those top tier shows that all of us would watch before.
Yeah. Well, in the US, it was on Nickelodeon, which, talking about it real briefly, like, PR and Nickelodeon isn't a bad thing. I like the schedule that they have. The season mandate thing, for there being 2 seasons, is kind of annoying. But honestly, if you were to put it all together in one story, you'd get the same sort of show. You just move on to the next Sentai to adapt. But like, there's just something kind of unusual about Nickelodeon having PR. Maybe I'm just used to Disney being the home of PR since I grew up with it. Like, of course, like back then it was on Fox Kids, so you pretty much expect it to be like with Batman, Spider-Man, Superman. I think Beast Machines too, along with other shows that were probably around in the 90s. But like, for me, like, Disney being the home for PR back then just felt more natural to me. Of course, nowadays I don't really want that to be the case because of what Disney has become. But at the same time, kind of weird to see Nickelodeon be the home of PR. but I'm not that upset about it, really.
Yeah. Same thinking.
Regarding our characters, Jaden is our Red Ranger. He's kind of boring, honestly. He looks more like a PG or G-rated Hayden Christensen, which, like no joke. Like look up, Alex Hartman or Jaden Sheba, and compare his face to Hayden Christensen's face.
Like Red Ranger Jaden.
Yeah. Like, like honestly though, like he doesn't look like a bad actor. I just think that he's kind of bland. Like, there's not much going on with him.
They look like.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of close.
Yeah. Like honestly, I think Jaden looks more like Clone Wars Anakin, who I would say is G-rated Anakin, but no, not at all. Like, Clone Wars is more hardcore than Samurai.
Probably.
Clone Wars for sure looks better than even regular Hayden Christensen Anakin. No disrespect, but even compared to this, look from Jaden. Jaden is a lot better than Clone Wars, like actual movie Clone Wars Anakin. Or I mean, just Hayden Christensen Anakin. And then yet the top of all of them is the Clone Wars Anakin.
For me, Clone Wars Anakin and Revenge of the Sith Anakin are tied because they have more going on than Jaden does. Like, Jaden's so like bland. He's always like, we had to work together. Then he runs away and tries to solve a problem himself. Like, to his credit, he has a cool.
What kind of Red Ranger is that, man?
I know, right? Like, to his credit, he has a cool villain in the form of Deckard, who's kind of like this, like, weird alien human hybrid. Like, fun fact, he's played by the original actor of the Wild Force Red Ranger, Cole, and it's one of those rare instances where an older actor returns to play a new character, but like the looks are so distinct that you wouldn't think that the actor who played Wild Force Red would become a villain. Unfortunately, the actor who played both characters, Ricardo, I don't know his last name, Mendias, but he got involved with some serious trouble with the law for killing one of his roommates, and like that was just kind of a sad moment because like he's one of those characters that you'd look up to because he seemed like a genuine person.
Yeah, that'd be unfortunate then, even for his case changing to the character.
Yeah, especially since like on top of him being a kind of a cool villain, his character, Cole, I think was a stronger Red Ranger than even Jason from Mighty Morphin, simply because he had more of an interesting backstory. Like, he was raised in the wild. His parents were killed by Master Org, and I feel like I'm talking about Wild Force when we should talk about Samurai. We'll talk about Wild Force next year. But yeah, Jaden, kind of boring, but his sister, Lauren, is kind of cool. At first, I didn't really care about her beyond thinking, oh, she's like the next Samurai Red Ranger. She's our first female Red. But then I thought, no, wait, A Squad Red from SPD is. Like, she's got more going on. Like, I kind of respect her more than I do Jaden just because she's got a little more character to her. But beyond that, yeah, not much else to say about the Samurai Reds. We have Kevin, our Blue Ranger. He's kind of like a suck-up. He's kind of like, he likes to ass-kiss Jaden a lot. Like, he's loyal to him, but that's pretty much it.
Just loyal in the general sense of the team?
No, he's mostly loyal to Jaden. Like, he simps Jaden. You know, if he was able to, like, if someone were to make fan fiction of Jaden and Antonio being gay, I wouldn't be surprised if they made Kevin gay for Jaden. And that's not to be offensive. That's just how I see it with the way Samurai fans would view their friendships in a way.
Well, be interesting to see.
Yeah. Although Kevin did actually go up against Jaden in a fight when he was brainwashed by one of the monsters. As for our Green Ranger, Mike, like he's, I think, the best character because he has a bit of energy to him. I mean, hell, one of his first lines ever was in a trailer where he says, "I'll show you some of my moves after a few slices of pizza" to Mentor G. And like, yeah, that's kind of like the tone of the show. Like, it tries to be serious, but then it has those sort of lines in it.
Yeah, I remember something of that. It was the Green Ranger, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah, like, as far as Green Rangers go, like they usually vary from roles. Like you have Mighty Morphin Green, who's pretty much Sixth Ranger. He's considered a badass, but I think he's kind of a like loser for losing his powers and moaning about it. You have Greens like Zeo, Turbo, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed, who are kind of like main parts of the team. You have Green Samurai, the other Green Samurai for Ninja Storm, who is kind of like a nerd, but he's cool. You know, I think Mike was trying to be like Green Rangers such as Bridge from SPD or Xander from Mystic Force. But like, he just seems a little more like he's pretending to be them instead of trying to be just like them, which is kind of weird. Because like Bridge and SPD, he has like his own personality to him. He even has like memorable lines about Toast. Or him telling Jack that he's Jewish.
It's just often like he was just like mention about those or some other fashion.
Like sometimes Bridge would say like he's Jewish, but only once. Like when Jack said it's like getting Christmas presents early when he got his bikes. But yeah, I'll save my thoughts on SPD later. But spoiler alert, I love SPD more than Samurai. But yeah, Mike, he's kind of a weird one. Like he tries to be like the jovial of the team, but at the same time, kind of watered back or watered down. And then we have Emily, our Yellow Ranger, who replaced her sister when she got ill. And like she's like kind of a basic blonde. Like she's not that interesting. The only thing I remember about her was the fact that she appeared in a legendary battle, Unmorphed. But beyond that, all I remember from her is like her meeting this monster who's, okay, get this, his name is Negatron, which is basically Megatron with the M replaced with the N, and he looks like one of the most basic ass monsters out there. Like all he does is do like basic insults, and those push the people back that he mocks. Like he'd say, "Oh, your shoes are untied," and he pushes them back, or he'd say like, "Your breath stinks," and like they face injuries. Like he's not even that intimidating. He acts like a regular bully from preschool. Like he's not even the kind that would like probably like beat you to death. He's someone that probably annoy you that you try not to fight back because you don't want to get in trouble with your parents. And I think like the moment he started like calling Mike out for his training wheels or Emily for being a bad cook, I'm like thinking to myself, wait, Saban brought back the brand for this?
So you think it's kind of like an odd service or something?
It just seems like kind of like, yeah, like it just feels like it feels like Saban thinks that trying to make like basic ass sorts of dialogue for kids to understand is better than the good things that the Disney era had. Like I know Saban wasn't involved with the brand for so long, like he left the brand after Wild Force, but really? Even the Mighty Morphin monsters weren't that boring. At least they had some personality to them.
At least so.
Yeah. But basically the lesson is sticks and stones may break my bones, but bad words can't harm me. Which the way like the moral itself is fine, but like don't say it out loud, man. I mean, don't talk down to kids like that. Like, okay, 5-year-olds, sure, but don't treat them like little kids constantly. Don't treat them like they don't understand human emotions.
So basically, you're saying that the show is slightly more childish, and it also disrespects the kids by treating them as dumb people.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like, as someone that grew up with the Disney era and saw the older era seasons as well, like, this ain't me saying, oh, back in my day, we used to have all these sorts of things. Like, this is just me saying that back then, they taught us lessons, but they didn't preach about it. Like, they didn't turn into VeggieTales. And I hate saying that because VeggieTales is more organic than Neo Saban.
Funny you say organic and vegetables.
Yep. But like,
Wordplay.
Squidward, you're seeming like an angry vegetable. But yeah, like, you know, that's like the '90s were one thing when they did that because they want to make their kids who would think that watching these violent shows would turn them into savages would be one thing. Like Sonic Says, Sailor Moon Says, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers looking at the camera and acting like they gotta teach kids to not do this at home, or Mario telling people to if they don't watch his show they're gonna turn into Goombas. Like, that's one thing. But we're in a current time period where kids programming can be more than just talking down to kids, and it can be a little more clever. Like SpongeBob doesn't preach things to kids. It's like sneakier, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, we've seen shows like the Clone Wars and Transformers Prime, plenty of stuff from Marvel and DC, shows like Regular Show and Adventure Time, Ed, Edd and Eddie, and not just modern stuff, but also older stuff too, like Looney Tunes, Tom and Jerry, older Nicktoons like Cat Dog. Like, they didn't talk down to kids. Like, they were pretty entertaining. Can some of it be kind of basic humor? Like, thank you so much. Like, can it be kind of like, or even House of Mouse, or Goof Troop? Like, those are shows that are made for kids, but they know that kids aren't stupid. They treat them as intelligent people that would probably get the jokes over their heads for some stuff. They go back to it and they're like, oh yeah, that went over our head. Like, remember we were watching Barnyard? Oh, some of that shit got past our heads?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those mod stuff you can like remember from some Barnyard episodes.
Yeah, like, we were watching the movie yesterday, and I was laughing so loud when the camera was like facing Otis's ass, and that made me laugh so loud. Like, I didn't ignore it. I was like, "Oh my god, they're dancing!" But now I'm like, "Wait a second, why am I realizing this just now?"
It was a nice transition, like I said.
Beautiful cinematography, Nickelodeon. But like, my point is, how come you have shows like the examples I mentioned where they don't talk down to kids, but you have Samurai, which feels like not just an outlier compared to all the other shows, but also something that doesn't belong with the seasons we got previously. Like, In Space to RPM felt more natural with their characters.
Right.
And like, if this was our first ever show, like if this were like our first ever season of PR, I really wouldn't even like Samurai that much, because you have other shows that are far superior. This feels more like it was meant to be made some other time, and they thought, oh, hey, let's put this out there now. Like, it'd be like putting Barney the Dinosaur amongst some of the more interesting PBS Kids shows. I don't know what there is out there, but probably something that ain't as good as Sesame Street or Cyber Chase or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I already went through a lot of stuff about why the tone of the series sucks. And I even talked about our Pink Ranger, Mia. She's pretty much known for being a bad cook. And Kevin didn't like the food she made. Yawn. Then there's Antonio. Yep. And then there's Antonio, who's our Gold Ranger. He should be exciting, but he feels like another part of the team. Like, he doesn't feel all that special compared to past Gold Rangers or past Six Rangers. Like, okay, his phone's silver, and he has a Barracuda blade, but like, beyond that, he's just another guy. Can't be that excited about him, but I always find it amusing when he says something like, Samurai Morpher! Gold Power!
Antonio.
Yeah, I think Antonio is a gold supremacist.
drunk and overdosing on food.
Overdosing on drinks, yeah. He's probably a drinking addict, alcohol addict. He probably abuses everyone. Like I think he abuses his this Octoroo guy who's like, ooh, ooh, stop doing this sort of thing. You need to go to therapy or something, or whatever. I'm not really that interested in the villains in Samurai. They want to flood the world, which is fine, but yeah, they ain't no Lord Zed, they ain't no Rancic, they ain't no Masagog. Like, what's better? Turning the world back in time to make himself king of the dinosaurs and the new civilization, or flooding the world? You know, I just realized, flooding the world, wasn't that something God did to Noah?
Yeah, you're right.
So are you implying that Saban pretty much thought that making God, using God's attempt to flood the world would work well for a villain? Like, Saban is a weird man with that, and I don't want to talk about the villains anymore. Like, let's talk about one last thing before we go on with the other subject matters. This show tries to be like the next Mighty Morphin. Now, if this was something we haven't gotten for a good while, like if this was our first new PR season for so long, I would buy it. But the problem is, we've had plenty of seasons that are distinct from each other. You know, In Space was distinct from Mighty Morphin, Time Force was identifiable, Dino Thunder was identifiable, Mystic Force, RPM, like all these seasons are unique from one another. Then you go back to Samurai, who is pretty much Mighty Morphin 2.0. The theme song is a remix. They say Go Go Samurai. We have Bulk and Spike as our comedic duo. So, but like the thing is that they don't really go too far with that sort of Mighty Morphin homage. Megaforce has some Mighty Morphin influences, but not all of them. Like, there's no Bulk and Spike. Our Rangers don't have similar names. Like, they have similar roles, but not exactly like him. And the theme song, which is another Mighty Morphin remix, is the same one as Samurai's, but they say Power Rangers Megaforce instead of Rangers Together Samurai Forever. So, like, what the fuck, Saban?
Damn, weak.
Like, is this trying to be like the next Mighty Morphin, or are you trying to half-ass it? So basically, instead of whole-assing one thing, Saban half-assed two things. Not a good look.
Especially on them.
Yeah, and I think Jonathan Zatcher tried to say that the Disney era seasons would no longer be canon. Like, dude, what the fuck? You're throwing away some of the best things about PR in history. And Disney canceling the brand, I hate that. But of all the eras out there, I love Disney's era the most because it has the best characters, the best music. And on top of it being something that I grew up with, it's something that stuck around with me for so long. And I'm pretty sure it stuck around with many other fans as well.
It's on a very high level. I remember growing up with some of the moments with Power Rangers I had. It's been a while, though.
Yeah. But the funny thing is that despite saying that the Disney era seasons wouldn't be canon, they somehow mentioned or somehow made a crossover with RPM. But don't get too excited if you liked RPM, because all they bring in is just one Ranger. And they don't use the other team members. They don't go to the RPM dimension. It's like, how do I say this? How do I put this? When they bring back someone from a show you really, really like in a new thing, and it kind of feels like a watered-down version of it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of Crisis on Infinite Earths with DC. How about an example?
When they brought some special DC cameos.
Yeah. But a more prominent example to me is J. Jonah Jameson returning, or played by J.K. Simmons in Far From Home. Now you bring in like this legend, this great thing from something you liked, and he's in like a shitty movie or TV show or episode. Which, yeah, you already know about Far From Home at this point. And judging by like the things I mentioned about Samurai, I don't think you guys need to watch Samurai either. So I'll say this about Power Rangers Samurai is that it's a season that I don't like, but it's a season that I don't hate. It's a mixed bag for me. I remember getting excited for it, but ultimately it's one of those things where I get to see what they're going for, but turned out it was either trying to be like the next Avatar or another MFPR with Japanese influences, because the show just felt like a copy and paste of Shinkenger, but with Bulk and Spike. So I don't know what they're trying to go for, but yeah. Samurai, I give it like a 5 out of 10.
I mean, it's also a rating for, I guess, what they try, even from its cheesy expression from the show.
Hey, the thing is that PR would usually be considered cheesy, air quotations,
but at least not from every level from some of the past shows that most people will remember, right? Because like not everything, like not, I mean, yeah, the idea is cheesy from some shows, but like the majority of it, not too cheesy.
Yep.
At least from what I believe.
But more importantly, they made the show cool back then. Like, from In Space to RPM, we got more ongoing story arcs. We moved away from Mighty Morphin. And, like, it just felt more exciting to watch the next season. Like, I remember, like, watching Ninja Storm, then being crazy for Dino Thunder, and then SPD, then Mystic Force, then Overdrive, then Jungle Fury. With RPM, I wanted to be excited for it, but I couldn't watch it because it was only on ABC Kids. And, you know, I know you guys grew up with ABC Kids, too, but did you guys remember waking up so early for a new show or a new episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me it wasn't for ABC. It was mostly just be television.
Oh yeah, Teletoon?
Yep.
That's weird because, like, PR, back when it was run by Disney, should be on, like, Disney XD or Jetix or Toon Disney or ABC Family in Canada, at least.
I mean, from Family Channel, yeah, it'll be some shows that my brother and me would used to watch beforehand, but like mostly if it was the really great shows, my expectancy would be for Teletoon. It just had the majority of all the best shows that literally made my childhood.
Yeah, I got what you're going for. But now let's move on from Samurai and talk about the War for Cybertron game. So yeah, War for Cybertron, way better than Samurai, obviously. But like, it might be weird to talk about it because Samurai is a TV show, and War for Cybertron is a video game. So I'll instead say that War for Cybertron is better as a video game than as a TV show because, oh boy, remember my thoughts on the Netflix stuff?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. For those who ain't aware of it, the Netflix stuff sucks. But this game does not suck. Like, it's one of the very few retellings of the War for Cybertron, or Autobot and Decepticon origins. It tells us about Optimus Prime becoming an Autobot leader. You know, introduces us to all these characters. And overall, it worked quite well. The story itself, what I like about it is the fact that Optimus Prime's main mission is to look for Sentinel Zeta Prime, who had the Matrix of Leadership, or I believe, well, I don't think he had it with him, but like, he was reported missing, and then they found him dead.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I'm quite also happy with the inclusion of Dark Energon, which was one of those things about War for Cybertron that made it distinct from other seasons. It was also the result of, like, the core for Cybertron being messed up so badly, thanks to Megatron trying to take it over himself.
Yeah, because that was what was going on in the story, right? For Megatron trying to, I mean, like, you're trying to regain for Cybertron, you're trying to bring it back to its state, but even though he was doing it like bad intentions that he usually does with the Decepticons.
Yeah, like he wants to rule Cybertron himself. But the problem is that with Dark Energon, it's a bit of a different story. Because in the video games, like War for Cybertron, like when it comes to the Dark Energon, it's like basically meant to be like this new power source that made characters stronger, but it's much more unstable and like basically gave the Decepticons more power, but it also would mess up Cybertron. He wants to take it over himself, or at least make the Autobots stay away from it. Problem is that the core cannot really take Dark Energon, and basically he is to blame for the downfall of Cybertron. Although he wants to act like Optimus Prime and the Autobots interfering are responsible for it, but that's our Megatron for you. Also, Dark Energon is one of the main aspects of Transformers Prime. So you might be thinking at first, wait a second, they say War for Cybertron is meant to be in G1. Why are you mentioning Transformers Prime? Well, it's simple, friends. War for Cybertron is meant to be a prequel to Prime. Like, the aesthetics look different. Like, these are more G1 based, whereas Transformers Prime was more like the movies and animated, but nope. Apparently, this game is meant to tie in with the TV show, which might sound weird at first, but story-wise, it makes sense. Especially when you consider the fact that this can't really work as a prequel to any sort of G1 fiction, especially the cartoon. In the old cartoon, Optimus Prime was originally Orion Pax. He got killed in battle and was rebuilt by Alpha Trion. Of course, we also have characters like Trypticon, who shouldn't exist on Cybertron, as well as Silverbolt and Cyclonus. And we even have characters like Barricade. Like, Barricade does not exist in Generation 1. Now, he first appeared like one of the toys. It's a Micromaster, but he was more known for being in the cartoon Energon for 2004 and the first movie as a police officer.
Yeah.
But, yeah. This sort of continuity thing is kind of confusing, but it makes sense when you think about it. The only weird thing is just like the designs. Like I said, the game looks more like the cartoons or the 80s. The TV show looks more like the movies.
Yeah. You can tell that.
But like, at least here, it wouldn't be so bad to think about it when you consider the fact that like Hasbro has this sort of production Bible that would depict a version of Transformers Prime that looked more close to the Cybertron games. Because like it's kind of hard to pinpoint because those who aren't aware of the franchise as much as I would be wouldn't have much of an understanding of how it works. But like there was this pop-up book that gave us like Transformers Prime style G1 designs of Optimus and Bumblebee. Like they look like they'd be the War for Cybertron versions of the characters from the Aligned universe, whereas the Prime cartoon gave us like a version of Optimus' Cybertronian design, a more Cybertronian version of Bumblebee or Megatron or Soundwave.
I got that from when I was watching it before.
Yeah, especially from like the backstory that Ratchet gave about Orion Pax and Megatronus all those years ago. But yeah, Cybertron I like as a game. The story itself is quite good. You know, the gameplay.
The gameplay was great.
Yeah,
I just remember watching it.
Yeah, like from my experience playing the game itself, like it's great to revisit it because it just feels so natural to move around and shoot Autobots and Decepticons. One thing I like is the fact that the Decepticon backstory plays in more. Like it's like most games, like the 2003 G1 game or the movie games for the first and second films, they give you like an alternate story arc. Whereas for War for Cybertron, the Decepticon campaign comes first, then the Autobot campaign shows up. And it works well. I like seeing like the fact that the Decepticons are responsible for this, and I have to play as the Autobots and clean up their mess to the best of their ability.
Yeah, true.
But like playing around in the gameplay is pretty solid. I like the engine they used. I don't know what it exactly is, but I like the movement itself is very smooth. It's very responsive. Transforming is cool. Like whether you're playing as a heavy character or a light character, a ground character or a airborne character, like it's all good. It's all smooth and responsive. None of that sort of rushed feel that we got from like the 2007 movies game. But it's not bad, but it feels kind of a little wonky.
That was rushed from like because I watched I saw like cutscenes from one time years ago and just seeing how like too much more they want to the story compared to the original movie. Even though it's a movie tie-in game.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Sometimes movie tie-in games they have to be rushed so they don't have to focus on what's already shown from the original movie. So they just get you focused on the game. But even so, it was from just the introduction from the game, like how they brought Sam into meeting Solid Boss, at least when he brought Sam to being all about like how it was in the movie, that was more rushed than even the first one or the movie itself.
Yeah, mainly because like it pretty much has that sort of movie tie-in thing, but none is as rushed of a game as the Japanese 2003 game, which I think it's called Call of the Future or Tetekai, maybe Titties. But yeah, but like it's a bad game because like at first glance you might think, oh, it's based on the 80s Transformers. It looks cool, but no, man, the game is shit. Like you can't really upgrade your characters that easily. Punching and kicking is slow as hell. You lose energy when you like transform or shoot enemies. You always have to attack them constantly, and like it wouldn't even be so bad if the presentation was solid, but it's so PS1-ish. Like it feels more like it belongs to the Dreamcast than it does the PlayStation 2. But yeah, I think we can definitely agree that War for Cybertron is a better game, but I kind of prefer the Armada game from 2004. Like that's much more unique.
I don't think I remember even playing, I never played much Transformers games before. I never even seen it from the Armada games before.
Let me say this: that
Is it good?
Yeah, it's good. It's better than the 2003 game, and I think it's on par with the War for Cybertron game. But with War for Cybertron, it's more of an original story of sorts. Plus, it feels more like a traditional modern Transformers game where you can transform, shoot enemies, you have campaign modes, and of course, there's even what used to be online team deathmatch, which, as far as I can remember, was just a fucking blast. Unfortunately, the servers shut down, which sucks because it was fun to see either people playing against each other or actually playing with other players. I think it was good. And something we got, like that was something we got with the Revenge of the Fallen game and Dark of the Moon, Fall of Cybertron. I don't think we got that with Rise of the Darkspark, which was pretty stupid. But yeah, War for Cybertron is a great video game. I absolutely love it, and I love its backstory, and compared to the Netflix War for Cybertron, it deserves a name much better. Compared to the Bumblebee movie, this is how you approach nostalgia fans. Not like trying to be super mediocre, basic, and obvious like with the Bumblebee movie Cybertron scenes. And compared to Cyberverse, well, this game isn't as basic. And I like Cyberverse, but it ain't no TFP. It ain't no War for Cybertron game. So I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10.
Nice.
Solid rating.
Well, one thing that I remember about the game was, I fell in love with the trailers. Trailers were pure art, man. I really love it. All the things like Cybertron,
the cinematic one.
Yeah, but honestly, the Fall of Cybertron trailer I like even more.
No, I mean about the game.
Yeah, I know, like, the game itself has great trailers, but I kind of prefer the Fall of Cybertron ones because they feel more emotional.
Oh.
Like, I felt kind of sad when Optimus was holding Bumblebee in his arms and, like, grabbing him by his hand.
That was pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. like Bumblebee movie. What? This is much better, honestly, because it ain't just trying to ride on nostalgia. It's more emotional. Like people say stuff like, "Oh my God, Grimlock! Oh my God, Bruticus!" But nah, man, seeing Optimus like hold on to Bumblebee's hand while Bumblebee is like struggling to live, like that's beautiful right there. Very touching, emotional. I bet someone shed a tear in actuality. But as for my rest of the thoughts on Fall of Cybertron, that'll be for next year because there is something that we have to talk about Fall of Cybertron on its own segment next year. But in the meantime, here are our thoughts on the Deadpool movie, released 5 years ago. I guess tying in with Valentine's Day. I mean, why wouldn't it? And, you know, I still like this movie. What about you guys?
5 years. Well, I remember when that T-shirt became viral, and I feel very excited about the movie because Deadpool was the kind of well, at that time we didn't have like too much superhero movies, not nowadays, but I really feel excited about this movie, being something different, but we are used to see Marvel movies or DC movies, like something
Exactly.
more like for adults.
Yeah.
Funny.
Like,
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
I think the only content we had at that time was the video game, which I remember playing really good.
Yeah, that video game was pretty solid, I gotta say.
Nolan, when you voiced him.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think.
Because that wasn't the only time he voiced him too. Like, if you guys remember the Hulk versus movie.
Yeah,
the little animated shorts between Hulk versus Thor and Hulk. Yeah, Nolan. That was the time I remember Nolan voicing for Wade, and like that was pretty much the first time I seen him as in his work of Wade, and he was just on the same perfect level as what Ryan did for Deadpool. And that was even before the X-Men Origins Wolverine, if we're talking
I think it was like released around the same time.
You did not mention that, please. We don't mention that, please.
Oh, we will in a bit. We gotta mention him.
Deadpool 2 made sure it never existed.
Yeah. Although it cameoed as an action figure in the first movie. But yeah, like many people love to shit on Wolverine Origins. I don't really hate that movie, but I did hate how they did Deadpool because, like, I'm not gonna act like I was like a super Deadpool fan before the movie came out. Like my first time hearing about him was just a Mugen game. So that's me, it was like Deadpool suddenly throwing himself to like a camera, and I thought to myself, wait, what's with this Spider-Man looking guy? Like, why has he got swords? What's with his personality? Then I learned about it, and I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute, he's a parody of this DC villain Deathstroke. He's designed by one of the X-Men guys. He's part of the X-Men. So, like, yeah, Deadpool is, like, a very interesting character in general. And I just like thinking about his past because he began as a sort of, like, mute, like, barely, like, somewhat silent character. Sort of like Snake Eyes. He was created along with Cable in, I think it was, like, New Mutants or X-Force back in the 90s.
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
And of course, we had stuff like the video game as well as the leaked test footage that featured Ryan Reynolds, and that was like great.
That made everything possible.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Ryan's effort, like literally, even like what we know, or at least some of us that don't know, he's been putting his effort since within that time. He put 11 years trying to get Deadpool like greenlit. He already had the project up, he had screenplay made from Rhett and Reed, and he was trying to make sure that he could be able to like come to life, even when he had that flat opportunity from Origins, which we already knew. But even when he had that perfect approach that he tried to give to Fox, and it wasn't like accepted yet, that test footage literally was the savior, and it brought him that opportunity. It brought the chance to be greenlit from Fox, get it up to production, and with that, it came to life, and the rest was history.
Exactly. And, it's very amusing that we go from what people consider to be like the antichrist of Hollywood adaptations. Like, I'm not someone that wants to bitch about how quote-unquote comic inaccurate someone is, but if we're talking about someone specific, like an icon like Deadpool, like, you shouldn't mess up his appearance. Like, maybe don't make him as much of a fourth wall breaking guy, but like, keep a similar look to him. Keep his core personality intact in Wolverine Origins. Because when Wade Wilson was Wade Wilson, when we saw his face, he was more like Deadpool than Baraka was. Like, I guess they tried to vaguely homage him with the eyes and the stitched mouth, but like, no.
Yeah. No.
No. No. So thank God we got the leaked footage, and now we got this movie, which, like I said before, I still like. It's got all the things that I want from a Deadpool movie. Like, not a big story, but something to keep me entertained by him. Although the story we do have is a little more on the same sort of level of super origin stories. A character has a sort of life, something changes his life, and he now faces a new experience world. But it's different.
Yeah, but also it was. Yeah. Even though it was the first step for doing this kind of movie, that was sell as the first rated R superhero movie. Like anybody can imagine that someone could do this for a movie. Well, nowadays because we have Blade and other movies that are R, but it's like was kind of different because it was 2016, right?
Yeah.
Like we got Civil War, Batman v Superman,
then probably think about too. 2016 was probably the best year of my life. Thinking about too. Everything was so well, with the way it was at school. It was just great. It was the last year for me to leave before I go to high school, and just that year was the funness I had with friends every time. I just never had more fun.
Same here, man.
And movie-wise, made life just more greater with the year being superheroes, or maybe somewhat superheroes fighting with Civil War, Batman v Superman, and then Deadpool included, Doctor Strange, Rogue One.
Yep.
Rogue One.
Well, Rogue One at first I was excited for it, but it's okay. But superhero stuff, we'll get more into our thoughts on the other stuff.
Overall, I'm trying to say 2016 really brought such a highlight when it comes to either the idea with sci-fi, how much it peaked a lot, especially, even TV-wise, right? The Flash, Arrow, Legends of Tomorrow, seeing how that the universe.
I kind of miss those times, honestly.
It was times when everything was easy. There wasn't too much over criticism of things from past, and everyone was going along with a lot that was made to either some changes, bigger or small, and then we just had a lot more enjoyment, just as a joint group, just either watching it in theaters or just from our own home screens. Everything was perfect. Every entertainment given, either by episodes from the show or just from a movie in general, it was nothing felt wrong.
Well, except for Ghostbusters.
You're gonna make me cry, man.
But yeah, overall, big year for sure. But one thing I was about to mention was the fact that all these trailers try to be super serious, super tough, super gritty, dynamic music and all that. Lines that are repeated in trailers, but Deadpool, nah, he's got more things going on with him. He's loud, he's got his own personality, he's got X gonna give it to you. He got lines like, "Hey, yeah, I'm on a suit, baby."
Had that on my playlist the whole year during school time. just when all the trailer songs came through, because I didn't listen to, well, the X-Men I listened to that, but Shoot, like the song Shoot, I never heard that, and I was already bobbing my head back to back listening to the trailer again, and then I just had that in my playlist while at the bus stop, and it was just a fun song to listen to. It's like, you're shocked, and bam, what's with that thing? You want to know how to hang, straight up, way up, hold up, it's the love, you're protecting my mother.
One question though.
Yeah.
Were you drawing Deadpool shooting guys on the bus?
Oh, yeah, exactly. At the moment, it was like that for, pretty much in the movie or whatever. And I was singing with it too, because I actually got into the song. And while in the movie, I was just bobbing with him, drawing the big foreshadow coming in just like 10 seconds from the moment.
Yep. But like, and since we're talking about the humor in the movie, like, I like the humor in Deadpool quite a bit. You know, they say humor is subjective according to Joaquin Phoenix 3 years later, but I think the humor in Deadpool is pretty good. You know, it ain't just like basic raunchy stuff. It's got clever jokes. Easter eggs are good. And, you know, like, there's, like, my favorite line from Deadpool ever was, like, so dark, you're sure enough from the DC universe? But I think it's still pretty good nonetheless. Like, the lines we got from this movie.
Yeah, you can also feel the, you know, the sense of the character, you know, it's like, man, this is Deadpool, like, and you compare to the other version that I don't even say nothing about it, but it's like something unbelievable.
Yeah, like
this is what we want to see about him. You know, that crafty shot.
Yeah, we want that sort of like personality to him. Like he ain't like he an ordinary experiment. Like, okay, he's an experiment for sure, but like he's a loose cannon right there. Like, he's wisecracking, he's insane. Like he's like he's mentally fucked, but he still goes with it.
But he keeps it sane in the sake of love for Vanessa, which is some of the best moments that you've ever seen in any superhero film recently. It's just the most truest and empathetic love story that I probably would remember from any film.
Yeah.
That's the dedication that Wade had throughout the story, trying to get himself to just come out front and say, hey, I'm alive, but yeah, I'm physically disfigured.
Yeah.
Such an obligation. Like, he wanted to express so bad, but he never had the chance. But it came perfectly with Ajax, kidnapping her, and then just that moment for him having to be the ultimate hero of the day to save her, and that moment really added well just from the tone in general for how that setup was for the finale. It just brought a lot more emotion to the fight, which is a good reason why the final fight was just elite.
Exactly. And I was about to bring this up as well. Like, we've seen plenty of romance in comic book movies and big action movies in general. Like, some of it's good, some of it not so much. But like, the only other one I really liked the most was with Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst when they were Peter Parker and Mary Jane. Maybe it's a bit biased because I grew up with those movies, but like, I think their romance was the best. Some will say that, you know, like Clark Kent and Lois Lane would be good, but like, it feels more like they've known each other for so long. Whereas, I know some are going to say like, oh, Pepper and Tony, but like, again, they feel like they've known each other for so long. And of course, we got Andrew Garfield and what's the actress name again? Emma Watson. Emma Stone. Like, they're actually a couple in real life. Like, that's already easy. Like, that's easy.
Like, they had a good thing going. It's just that, obviously, with paparazzi and, you know, conspiracies from celebrity magazines or whatever, pretty much.
Alright, got Tom's back.
Them down on the same kind of level, bringing most other celebrity couples down, but they had a good thing going from what I remember seeing. Their time together, but now it's just taking over, which sucks.
Yeah. But I think, like, with the relationships that Wade and Vanessa had, it's the best we've seen. It feels the most convincing since Peter and Mary Jane in our Raimi trilogy, because like, they feel like they belong. And you already mentioned
even on the natural sense, because those relationships, I feel like it was made in the sense of like you see that in the movie type relationship. There are rare ones that feel natural, like you see love come together in a sense of how it's not scripted, how it just feels real out of what they say and what they express. And that was done between Wade and Vanessa on the same level as Peter to Mary or Peter to Gwen. And like nothing fell off or like faking that kind of love, like nothing cliche came through. It was just like two completely different but similar type of beings that had such an unexpected love and appreciation of each other, even from whatever issues they had from the past life. They were able to relate to each other by how. Just remember from the first game they had each other sharing how shitty their lives were.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the perfect moment of bonding. And it makes sense knowing those two. Even when we got to just meeting Vanessa, we can understand how, on the appearance sake, just the type of person she was. And she just fitted well to being the type of like lover or just accomplice for Wade.
Yeah, I also think it's because both of the actors are very charming.
Yeah.
One person, they're just
personality-wise, like they get off perfectly.
Wade Wilson, especially. I mean, like I always laugh. I always like put a smile on my face whenever he mentions lines like, "Whatever you do, don't make the suit green or animated," because obvious Green Lantern reference. And you know what? Make fun of Green Lantern all you want.
Anything that's something to do with green to a bad CG is the easiest remark to Green Lantern.
What would he react about? What would he do if he saw kryptonite, though?
If you saw that, I mean, he tried to make it not too easy, but also not too hard to get for if you're going to express another DL joke.
Yeah, although, like, ironically, I kind of get tired of Easter egg lists, but I wanted to look for any jabs at Green Lantern, and what we got wasn't too bad. And there's even, like, a collector's card of a Green Lantern look-alike. And I think there was a poster that had Ryan, like, Green Lantern, or Deadpool with, like, a ring pop that was glowing green for some reason. Was that real or was it fan-made?
Maybe.
Either way, like, it was, like, the Easter eggs are pretty good, and, you know, we already talked a lot about Deadpool himself. What about, and Vanessa, like, what about the other characters? What about Colossus and Negasonic Teenage Warhead?
Warhead, literally the greatest name ever. I'm not even recalling. That is literally the greatest name of either a primary or secondary character in any superhero comic book that I've ever heard.
Yeah, although it kind of rivals with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Wait a second. Teenage.
It's so close to being so cool, like from the
Mutant.
namesake cool, but it's just so good.
Like, her character, she's like the sort of like tough gal, basically. But I liked her quite a bit. You know, she wasn't too bad overall. She has
There's nothing to take her off. I mean, like she was always giving like a bad type of environment around when she was with Colossus or Bull, but yet she was still likable.
Yeah. Well, that being said, like Colossus was the one to speak more, given the fact that he had this role. Like, and by the way, you know, I didn't mind the Colossus from the older X-Men movies, but this one stands out to me more because of the size, the uniform, and the personality that he had.
The size is beyond accurate to what Colossus should have been shown as from the past X-Men films.
Yeah, honestly, I think like if this was the Colossus we had, it would have been kind of more impactful to see him throw Wolverine, because Wolverine was tall in the X-Men movies, which, again, I ain't upset about because I love Hugh Jackman.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and speaking of which, Hugh Jackman doesn't really make a cameo as Wolverine, which is fine with me. They made up for it with Deadpool 2.
We're pretty much lost now in the opportunity, especially after Logan. I don't think we're going to have a future with Deadpool and Wolverine at the same universe. Even though they were, but like just the same place in front of the solid big screen.
Yeah, but ultimately what matters most is that Deadpool stands on his own accord, and I think he did, along with his side characters, his romance, and his enemy, the main head of Ajax.
Ajax. This stuff.
Although it's kind of funny, like, it's Ajax, which is a name that's usually associated with, like, cleaning products.
Yeah, I saw that.
I didn't know that there was a cleaning product from the time called Ajax.
I did, but I don't think anyone made jokes about that either. Oh, and how can we forget Black Al? Blind Al? I think it was Blind Al? The old Black Lady.
Yeah, Black Al.
The old lady, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I miss cocaine. I think that's what she said. She doesn't do much, but at least she adds to the scene when she was with Wade Wilson. You know, he's basically trying to, like, look for a place. Like, she was pretty much like
that moment between the two of them.
Yeah.
When Deadpool said, like, I love you very much. I also buried like a thousand kilos of cocaine somewhere in the apartment, right next to the cure for blindness, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like both like a nice thing and kind of a jab at her. But like, hey, they can throw jabs at each other. Like they ain't gonna cry about it. Like they grown up.
Nope.
Wait, who was? Wait, I don't know how I forgot his name. Like what? Okay, like Wade's friend that was at that was the bartender played by
TJ Miller. Yeah, he was cool too. I kind of forgot his name, but I do remember one of his lines describing Deadpool's face.
I want to say Fred, but no.
I remember his line though. Like he basically called how he said that he looked like a scrotum avocado sort of guy.
Yeah.
Like honestly though, like with the facial scars, you know, Deadpool without his mask still looks kind of good. Maybe it's just me. Like it's kind of
great.
Like it's kind of weird. Like
it was good.
I think Wade Wilson looks more handsome with the makeup that was like the prosthetic makeup used on him than without it.
Yeah, it was good.
Like, I don't care if he was missing hair. Like he still looks cool. He looks like a badass to me.
When he appears naked and that scene in the hospital again, that that scene where he's naked, like you can see also he has some
Yeah, this guy's pretty much like forget all like the like you know how people like to complain that movies made for men try to like appeal to the male gaze? Well, fuck the male gaze. The Deadpool gaze is where it's at, ladies and gentlemen.
Much better.
Yes, indeed. But no real talk though. Like Deadpool's face looks pretty good overall. I like it.
Yeah.
Like my reaction wouldn't be like, "Oh my god, dude, you look disgusting." My reaction would be, "Whoa, cool! You look awesome, man."
Yeah.
Yep. And
then I call the police.
You call the police and be like, "Hey guys, look, check out this cool outfit. Check out his cool face. You guys gotta see this." Actually, no, don't ruin his life unless he's like a celebrity. But like, don't dox him either. That being said, though, like a lot of people nowadays try to go after the Deadpool movies and say that they don't hold up or kind of like one note. Especially now that we've gotten people try to talk down on Deadpool. Do you guys agree with that?
About what exactly?
Like, I've seen some people on my Twitter timeline say that Deadpool is kind of overrated or that his movies don't work. But, like, how do I say this?
Like, it ages better than most Marvel movies. Let me say that.
Yeah.
Okay, it is in the sense that, like, if you want to say overall of the MCU, I can name a lot, but, like, I don't want to put too much time for that.
Yeah.
I just say it carries a lot more better since, like, beyond just the, I mean, each MCU film does, like, it's kept original, except for those that would maybe, like, bring a lot of adaptation of some past or arcs in Marvel Comics, right? But even so, for Deadpool, he like, it was, like, made sure that everything was to honor just the idea of the character and just how much like he brought such a very big influence to the storylines that he has, especially with himself, how he grew out in his origins of becoming a mutant, and then even from the aftermath of how he developed such a sense of being a great fourth wall breaker, and how he was like keeping as that psychotic mercenary, mirth with the mouth type of beat, and he didn't take that away, and like he just kept himself as a completely loved character from start to finish. Whereas like other films, like from MCU, like some characters would fall off in moments, or maybe some moments with the characters just fall off because it wasn't kept well enough to support either the moment that went on from the story, or either the tone that was set, or what the characters were doing that made the scene feel less appreciated, or just the movie itself. But Deadpool, start to finish, was beyond perfection.
Right.
Yes.
Also, what I liked about it was the fact that, Deadpool twisted his jokes around quite a bit. Like, it ain't just like some sort of joke that would be made over and over again. Like, not like the Lego movie where he kept on repeating everything is awesome, or make jokes that I think would last for just one movie. Because basically Deadpool isn't rinse and repeat. Like, he can always come up with a new joke or a new fourth wall break. And so long as it doesn't feel repetitive as hell, then I would be more content with Deadpool with his jokes. And pretty much I have been with the first movie, at least. So, yeah. And one other thing. Like, if certain movies can hold up well, or were only made for, like, a specific year, then if that sort of argument would be made for Deadpool, we have to say it about other movies as well. Like, a movie like Back to the Future is beloved by many people in pop culture, but it would only work well for, like, 1985 just because of its setting. And I think that pretty much sums up any movie in general. Like, you can say that Back to the Future is timeless, but if you're going to say that a movie like Deadpool ain't timeless, wouldn't we see the same with other movies as well?
Deadpool pretty much remained timeless. Like, first to be called overrated, though, even from, like, how many years now? 5 years since it came? It just makes it more better. You can call it overrated, it just shows how amazing, like, the film was, and how appreciated the audience knew it was, including us. And even kids that would start to get on Deadpool, like, from now, like, if they start just watching it, and like they wonder why we loved it so much when it came out, it was because of how much of a peak like it was compared to the other comic book films that was just coming within the 2010s. And Deadpool stand out more than most films besides Batman v Superman because it just kept himself so well in its originality and the tone it brought out of the story itself. How much authentic fun was brought from its comedy, its dark humor, which is just beyond for meme culture.
More importantly, the cast.
Yeah, and just how well it done rated R. Even it kept us at such a level that it brought all of us in questioning for what would it be like if Deadpool was an MCU. But now that's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's where the next subject matter goes in. How would Deadpool work? Like, okay, we'll be revisiting this again if we get like a Deadpool 3 by the time we talk about Deadpool 2 in 2023, but like this is kind of important because Deadpool doesn't really, and X-Men in general, don't really mesh well with the MCU at this rate.
Yeah, it doesn't, because it kept itself from its think of how it's expressed from their stories, that they kept it a lot more on a different tone than how we know Marvel is out of the influence of Disney.
Yeah.
Like, I'll say this too. From Phase 1, before the Avengers came, Iron Man 1, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, those films would be able to mix well enough with
Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, X-Men.
It would have.
I guess Blade, maybe Fantastic Four from the earlier days.
From the early days, yeah. Like those are all early times before the rise of the MCU came. That came in 2012, right? With the Avengers. And they bought Marvel from maybe 2011, maybe around 2012, right?
2010.
And at that time it was really made in development for the Avengers. Like that was set up long ago. But with the help of Disney and then everything else after for the future phases, the influence of Disney just brought the sake of the superhero genre to be so big that it made even the best film directors to cinema discuss about how unappreciated like it should be, or just how not well it is that most of us in the world would think. That's how amazing the MCU is, because of how much it rose to popularity and to pop culture.
Yeah. Like, regardless of your views on it, at least like it knows its audience quite well. Unlike the other cinematic universe, which flip-flops.
Because Kevin Feige, he's been working through the Marvel films long before the MCU existed. He's been part of it since the X-Men films, to the Fantastic Four, to the Spider-Man trilogy from Sam Raimi, right? And even so, he was executive producer. He was like the helper through the stories, and he was the one helping ensure the sake of keeping each film true to the arc that it was telling out of the certain comic books that would either bring good influence for, from what we saw from the original trilogy for X-Men, or even for just Fantastic Four. Like, he was behind for that. And for him, given the charge to be taking over for the individual company just called Marvel Studios, seeing how slow that could build itself, knowing how big it became at that point 13 years later to now, like Kevin Feige was already on his way to becoming a legendary producer, not just of Marvel's sake, but just
in general.
Cinematics.
You know, it's kind of amusing when you mention that, because like right now I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Kevin Feige. You know, like he's done this great stuff with Marvel, but at the same time I don't agree with some of the things he did. But hey, at least he ain't Walter Hamada.
At least he ain't Walter Hamada.
Yeah, at least he ain't Kevin Tishihari or Toby Emmerich. Like, sure, I don't like what he does. Yeah, or John Berg. Like, sure, I don't like what Kevin Feige does with Marvel, like basically making rinse and repeat, but at least he knows his audience, and at least he made films that I liked. More films than I initially expected. Like, sure, people like to make jokes about it. I know Film Gob does, and I know certain people would be like pissed off if we gave Feige even 1% of praise, and because we have to see him as an absolute certainty. But, you know, to his credit, he knows what to do. But I kind of, like I said, have a love-hate relationship with Feige. It's like, I like what you did, sir, but I kind of hate you as a person. Whereas with Walter Hamada, to be like, I hate you so badly. Why would you do this to Snyder? Why would you do this to Phillips?
Yeah.
So, yeah, like Deadpool in the MCU would be, well, so long as they don't like compromise the writing. I mean, it's too early to talk about Deadpool 2 because it doesn't turn 5 yet. It's on a bit weird and out of context, but more importantly, like, I think Deadpool would somewhat fit in the MCU because like his writing isn't that different. Because like Logan wouldn't fit with the MCU. I don't think Days of Future Past would fit that well either. Because like now the Marvel, like honestly, I think the only other non-MCU stuff that would fit with the MCU is Venom, because like it's basically more or less like a less repetitive MCU film. It doesn't have much of the shackles that stuff like Ant-Man and the Wasp or Captain Marvel would have.
Exactly, because from even the way, like story-wise, yeah, it was a similar rinse and repeat effort or effect like from any other Marvel film that you remember that came recently. That was in 2018, right?
Yeah.
And even so, they made sure that they kept the film in the tone, even with horrific, like element that they brought for Venom, which still may agree. They made it PG-13. It could have been rated R, right? But Sony still took that level because they wanted to see how it could go for the younger audiences, seeing if they loved it enough that maybe Sony could try to talk with Disney to try and make some deal to include it in the MCU, which we know it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Venom's gonna come.
Yeah.
Like,
Thanks to the Spider-Verse, thanks to what's been built up from it since then, seeing and expecting what Spider-Man 3 could be like if this could be the installment that really changes the scope of Marvel and just cinematic history in the sense of bringing all the film franchises together. And if Venom could be included in that from the Sony Spider-Verse, then it's going to be great things.
all I only have is just like two hopes. One, like, don't cheapen your writing, and two, don't buy out Sony.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like, it pretty much, this is an example of like one of those things where, admittedly, part of me would kind of be concerned about how it will turn out, but at the same time, I can see the approach. But as much as I don't really like the current MCU, I can at least say that there's more stuff that would be interesting than with the other cinematic universe. Like, what's there to be excited about for DC beyond the Snyder Cut? And I guess Battison.
Sure.
So, yeah, kind of interesting to talk about Deadpool when it comes to how he'd fit in with the MCU. Though I think it'd be a bit easier when we go more into the stuff about regarding Deadpool, like in 2 years down the road, as well as when we review Deadpool 2. So for now, I'll say that the first Deadpool movie, I like it still. It's better than people say it is nowadays, and I think it's one of the shining points of why comic book films of 2016 felt like a gold mine. Some I like more than others, but the ones I did like included Deadpool.
Yep, it was a standout. It was a film to look back that I even still like to look back to. I mean, because I can't find, you can't really find it on much streaming services if you don't have it by Blu-ray or digital. Like for me, because I don't have it. So
Wait, is that on
the
Hulu?
only closest would be Deadpool 2 because that's on Netflix currently. But even so, when I get the chance to see it, if it's like on TV, I'll watch it straight away just to get in touch with the nostalgia that 2016 gave for me and for a lot of us too, knowing how much of a standout that film is compared to all the past superhero films. Deadpool by far one of the best movies ever made, just in the general sense for all superhero films within the genre.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I got to give a lot of praise to Wade Wilson for pretty much making me happy. More importantly, I got to give praise to Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds, which pretty much feels like the Obama medal, giving himself a medal to another Obama sort of thing. But like,
you might as well give like a medal of honor, or just like another like a special from the president. Like Biden might as well give that the next time they bring people to be receiving the medal, and just have Ryan included because he deserves it for how much
yeah, like
an influence that he brought to the world ever since Deadpool came. Even beforehand, he's a comedic genius.
Like just have like
he's legend.
Like just have like Deadpool show up and give a medal to Ryan Reynolds. That way he can make up for shooting him when he saw the Green Lantern script.
Yeah.
Well, looks like we're gonna have to talk about Green Lantern later in the year. Well, I guess might as well. Like, this is gonna be interesting to talk about how Green Lantern holds up. But for now, Deadpool, the first movie, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10.
Solid. But for me, I give it 8.5. Or thinking about it, like in general, like thinking about it now, 8.5. Maybe back then, 9.5 or 9.
Yeah, I think I might go with your score too, thinking about it now, because like Deadpool is one of those like rare gems amongst comedy, because people are very like freaked out about comedy, but I think Deadpool is an example of not being afraid of humor without doing the cliche stuff like trying to make fun of politician leaders or doing obvious stuff. Because like Deadpool ain't no one-note pony or one-trick pony. And finally, we'll be talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog movie released last year. Now, I'm sure you guys were familiar about the redesign controversy, or I guess like the controversy about the initial design. I made it sound like it was some sort of controversy.
I prefer the original design.
Sonic. The Sonic.
Yes.
The real Sonic.
Let me tell you guys, like, when the movie's trailer first came out, like, everyone else was pretty much like, oh my god, it's gonna be the worst thing ever, how dare you, Sonic, the franchise is dead, Sega, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
I was gonna be real with you, man. Like, the trailer itself was what I kind of expected it to be. Admittedly, it felt like it belonged to the 2000s era of adaptations. Like, let's be real here. If this movie was put next to Alvin and the Chipmunks, there wouldn't be much of a contrast. Like, they're like two nostalgic legends put together, like, that have like sort of like a movie that would mostly appeal to like general audiences.
And with decent but not so decent CGI. Even though compared to both films, I still think Alvin and the Chipmunks stand out. Having better CG. The work in the Chipmunks even was a little bit better detail than Sonic itself. Even though Sonic, with the redesign, like changed the identity, so he made himself a lot better. Like the visual effects team pretty much helped change your mind. Thank God.
Honestly,
but even still.
Honestly, though, like, the Chipmunks look more like they belong to Ice Age than they do the real world.
Are you thinking on the level of animation?
Yeah, the Chipmunks look more like they belong to the world of Ice Age. Like, they're wearing sweaters, they're wearing hoodies, so they pretty much belong with the Sub-Zero heroes. Manny, Sid, Diego.
And Sid.
So it's kind of like, plus to me, Sonic is a different sort of adaptation. Like, it feels more like it's made for like a general audience, whereas other Paramount stuff, like okay, like this feels more like it'd be on par with the kid movies that Paramount releases. Like, if they made like a live action Scooby Doo, like not Scooby Doo, that's Warner Brothers. Like, if they made something like Clifford the Big Red Dog or live action Dora.
Yeah.
Whereas Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers feel more distinct. Like, they feel more like bolder movies. Like, feel like real blockbusters. Like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles less so. It feels more like a hardcore version of the older stuff. But Transformers feels like the most blockbustery of the three. In terms of the story, Sonic is more or less like the basic sort of character from another world goes into our world sort of thing. Like, it's not bad, but like, it kind of feels more like something I've seen before. You know, it kind of reminds me of something I'd see from E.T. or another. Yeah, it was like one of those, like, it feels like something I'd see.
I get it. It's like that alien comes to the planet. I don't know where he is.
Yeah.
He's to the world, and he meets this special character, either like a young boy or a girl,
or in this case, Cyclops. After he left the X-Men.
Yeah, made a great career being a sheriff.
Yep.
Before Logan.
Yeah.
Like, after the events of Logan, Cyclops left the X-Men. He simply survived the mutant death that Professor X made. But
that was before, yeah.
Like, I gotta say though that Sonic himself definitely feels like this was like made in the 90s. Like, there's another Sonic movie that was made. I think it was like Sonic Extreme. That was meant to tie in with like the video game console or the game that Sega wanted to make. But ultimately, like, this feels more like, what if the character that Sonic meets is an older man instead of a child? And what if it felt like less like a kids movie made in the 90s and more like a kids movie made for today's standards? That's pretty much how I see Sonic movie compared to Ninja Turtles or Transformers, which feel more like the characters belong in our world, basically. They don't feel like they belong from a TV or something else. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, I mean, like the way I didn't see the film itself. Well, I know most of my friends did. The same day they went to theaters. I didn't go because I'm sure I was still sick at the time. But even so, from just seeing from the trailer, itself, the both trailers, I already could tell how much of a generic childhood-based tone that was being so PG or just G, in general for audiences that might have been a show.
Yeah.
For kids.
That's not to say that the Sonic movie is bad for that reason. It's just compared to other movies, I already mentioned, Transformers and Ninja Turtles a lot, but, those feel meaty by comparison. They have a lot of stuff that's going on with them. Plus, going back to Transformers again, the first movie, our introduction was with Optimus Prime. He feels like he's a part of this world or this universe. I mean, I remember when he said, before time began, there was the cube, and talked about the Allspark and his race, the war. That feels like we're being introduced to someone that's been in this world. And another example, Spider-Man. I always remember when Peter Parker would say, who am I? You sure you want to know? And so on and so forth. Because he's someone that's pretty much seen this world. He's lived it. He's almost like he's telling us a story, as if we're his kids, basically.
Yeah.
And with Sonic, it just feels more like a 2020 version of a movie from the 90s, basically. But in terms of what we do have, I gotta say that the guy that played Sonic, I don't remember his name, I think it's Benjamin. He's a solid job, but I kind of prefer Roger Craig Smith's Sonic voice, who recently retired from the role after decades worth of Sonic.
I thought you mentioned on that.
Yeah.
Just to add to the conversation, the most common controversy was the design of Sonic.
Yeah.
But here in Latin America, we have a second, problem that who's gonna give the voice to Sonic, I know Tops knows this, but the one who gave the voice to Sonic was a YouTuber.
A Mexican YouTuber who doesn't have any experience at all.
Really?
Yeah, it feels, it's such a mess that they can give that character to him because, this is an iconic character. Okay, depends if his movie is bad or good, but it's an iconic character, and you're not going to give, someone without any experience a character like this. But they just did that because, he has a great audience, so the people can go to the movie just for him.
Yeah,
but
it kind of feels like they're trying to look for anyone off the streets. I imagine Paramount, Latin America equivalent, or the Latin America studios of Paramount would be like, "Quick, we gotta look for someone that knows how to sound like Sonic. You're a big Sonic fan," and they kidnap him and they bring him to the ADR section.
It was a cheap move. It was.
Yeah, and I'm guessing they didn't have many voice actors that spoke Spanish in those releases of the Sonic games, do they?
Well, I don't know.
Is there one iconic Sonic voice in Spanish? I don't think so.
If it's not in the movie and games, it's got to be from the TV show Sonic Boom.
Yeah. Yeah, here it hasn't been that
one. Well, we have one, but it's not it appears in the Olympic Games that Nintendo did. I guess there's one, there's other, and many series. Well, I'm not much in it, but it's not too popular here. But I don't know. To be honest, the most thing is that the main thing is that they give the voice to someone it has nothing to do with the voice acting, because voice acting is a profession. It's like, but it's, I don't know, it's something really strange and stressful, to hear his voice, to be honest.
It'd probably be like giving James Rolfe a role for a movie like I don't know what kind of movie. It'd probably be like giving James Rolfe the voice of a release of an international movie, because like James Rolfe is iconic, but seeing him in a movie that's got nothing to do with him would be kind of weird, unless it's like a cameo.
Yeah,
like that.
But as for the actual movie itself,
Logan Paul doing the voice of any other.
Oh my god!
Imagine that.
Logan Paul being the voice of Woody in Toy Story 5.
Yeah, something like that.
Better than Chris Evans for Buzz Lightyear.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Do we even need to mention that?
I think Chris can do well.
Yeah, but like he seems like the easiest choice ever. Like Tim Allen. Okay, I'm not upset about him being in the show because, like, first of all, I don't care. I already got like 4 movies that have Buzz Lightyear. Second of all, Patrick Warburton did a good job as Buzz Lightyear in the animated series. So it's like really, Chris Evans? It's like pretty much being like an obvious reminder, like, look, all these properties belong to Walt Disney Company. You gotta know about that. Like, we get it, dude. But back to Sonic. Like, as a movie itself, like the cast, they do a decent job. Jim Carrey, I think, is the best part of the film because, like,
definitely.
He kind of reminds me of how he was in films like The Mask or Batman Forever or The Grinch. And I guess you could say like him being like the movie feeling like a carryover from the 90s in terms of story and structure would be sort of like true, because Jim Carrey was popular in the 90s.
Yeah, and if Sonic had not came in the 90s, he would just dominate the film on the same level as every other film he's been doing. Time. Even from now, when he did from last year or whatever, even recently, he still does great. Because he's the perfect actor to fit in being Eggman. He's well.
Or in this case, it's Robotnik, because he's not really in much of an egg shape.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if he like wore a barrel chest. So I got a barrel to wear around his suit so he can become Eggman. Although the 2006 video game, as shitty as it was, at least had a good design for Eggman, if a little too realistic. But yeah, like Jim Carrey's Eggman, honestly, I definitely feels like a carry from the 90s, but it's still good nonetheless. He makes a great performance. He's energetic. He's got all the spirit of Jim Carrey. Like he doesn't
just his vibe, you feel this character is good because Jim Carrey gives he gives everything to this character, and it feels great to see him,
Yeah,
because nowadays he's not like too popular, but it's great to see him, getting a big movie.
Yeah, although I do remember people like giving a shit about him all of a sudden when he played Joe Biden in the Saturday Night Live segments. Where Alec Baldwin played Trump. Like, they did a good job right there. Like, they know how to make fun of those two boyfriends. But, yeah, like... Okay. Before we get sidetracked once more. Like, if we can make a counter of how many times we get sidetracked, we probably get to, like, 7 at this point. But, yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say that if this was a movie made in the 90s, I do feel that Jim Carrey would have got the top billing, because he and all the other actors that were in the Batman movies from the 90s got top billing. Jack Nicholson got his name before Keaton. Same for Danny DeVito. And it was even more funny because Jim Carrey got top billing in the posters, and Arnold Schwarzenegger too. Like, their names appeared before the actors' names of the guy that played Batman, which is kind of funny.
But it works, I guess, in the films marketing-wise. How else are you going to sell or get more of the audience to come before the movie if you're not going to put the front names of those that are going to carry the movie? and I'm gonna make the pun.
Yeah.
Jim Carrey carried Batman Forever. Jim Carrey carried like the Hedgeman. He carried so much films beforehand because he's Jim Carrey.
Yep.
I'll say more. Good night, guys.
Well, that being said, though,
that's the end of the TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
But this episode ain't over yet, though. So, yeah.
Not the end of the podcast.
But thing is about Jim Carrey is that he definitely feels like someone that would definitely get top billing, as we said. And honestly, if he was the character, like this was made in the 90s, he'd get top billing once more. But I guess you could say that has to do with the fact that in the past, a movie like Batman would usually not be as seen for older audiences as it would be now. Like the Dark Knight trilogy and BVS, and I guess the Battison movie, like those feel like something that would be appealing to not just comic fans, but anyone that likes Batman. Whereas
at least the realer Batman fans and appreciators that understand the true essence of how the character is, compared to Arnold Schwarzenegger's most cheesiest take for him. Even though, that worked for the younger audience from the time in the 90s, and it still worked on me because I loved the films growing up, watching it, being young. But even so, it's better enough to have the comic book fans like us to go with how well the Nolan Batman, then the Batfleck Batman, then the Batman. Like those are the Batman for us, not much of Kilmer or Clooney.
Because those movies, as well as films like I guess the MCU and Spider-Man and X-Men, like those feel less like those feel less like being obsessed about toy sales. They feel more about being obsessed with getting these characters out, getting attention to the audiences. Like, compare how people viewed X-Men in the 2000s compared to Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, Batman Forever feels more like a kid's movie, whereas X-Men, more so Spider-Man, feels more like an everyone's movie. And that's how I kind of feel about Sonic, where, like, Sonic feels more like a kid's movie, albeit one made in 2020, whereas, going back to the same conversation again, Transformers and Ninja Turtles feel more like an everyone's movie, more so Transformers. And especially true with, like, the Jim Carrey cast thing, where he's pretty much, like, the top billing guy. Like, if he, as we mentioned earlier, got this movie made in the past, like, he would have gotten all the attention.
Yeah.
And I think I just realized the fact that we talked more about the movie itself, like the behind the scenes stuff and the design and Jim Carrey more so than the rest of the movie's plot. But like honestly, the movie's plot's kind of basic. Like Sonic meets the guy, he's trying to get him back home. Like the action was good. Like, it feels like it's great. Like feels faithful to what I expect Sonic to do. Yeah. But I mean, it feels more like one chapter of a story stretched out into a full-length feature film.
Yeah.
Which I might as well made through a 2-episode or 3-episode show, half hour at least, since it wasn't even 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I didn't need every single Sonic character to be in it, but at the same time, like just Sonic himself, like I know Sonic was like on his own when we first met him in the old game, but like we're way past that. Like we should, like, we know Tails, like we should know like Knuckles, we know Amy, we know Shadow, like like we know those characters.
Like even if they do, like Paramount, if they greenlit for a sequel, like will we even see them?
Like I think we only see Tails because he showed up in the post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like weirdly, Tails looks more like his regular design than Sonic does. Like Sonic looks a little more stylized, mainly the eyes. It's weird.
Yeah.
But like, it just seems like maybe it's just me because like I expect Sonic the Hedgehog to be a movie where you see like everybody, not just one guy. It'd be like if the X-Men series came out and we were only introduced to Wolverine instead of, you know, other characters that were involved with him. Like we should see Jean Grey, we should see Cyclops, Magneto, Sabretooth, Mystique. Or like with Transformers, like Like nowadays, people would be like, "Oh, I want like an origin story for like Optimus Prime or Megatron." But, like, it'd be weird if our first Transformers movie just had like Optimus Prime in it. Like, these are characters that would be best when put together than when they're on their own. That's the sort of thing I got from the Sonic movie when he was just all by himself.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't like it felt like Sonic, like it was the movie Sonic the Hedgehog, not Sonic with the other hedgehog. But even so, they still could have brought in Tails if they could, like just to kind of make you feel a lot more like we're in the world of Sonic. But I mean, that's only for the next movie, I guess.
Yeah, but I think we're. Oh my god, that meme. But either way, like, it's just one of those things that sort of like confused me about Sonic, or it kind of feels a bit basic. Maybe it would have been cool to see like the other characters trying to look for Sonic, like Tails trying to look for his friends, Knuckles and Amy, to meet up with him. But I don't know. Like, I guess the important thing was that it beat Birds of Prey in the box office, which, I don't feel like revisiting Birds of Prey, but can we talk about the war that happened?
Wait, did Sonic actually, did it deal more from Birds of Prey like that?
Yeah, it got more money in the box office. And,
wow. Like, I mean, I can't remember it now. I used to go on box office Mojo often. I mean, if you guys know. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I know they say like, oh, like box office amount doesn't make a movie good, but then again, neither does the logo of a movie. So pretty much Birds of Prey, even with the DC logo, sucked.
Yeah, I couldn't care less.
So yeah, pretty much that's our review on Birds of Prey, guys. Don't expect me to talk about it in episode 12.
I mean, like when I get the chance to watch it, like I'll also see it in a sense. I mean, hearing from what you were saying, from just the story itself, it is going to be the generic hero comes, has a bad guy, and then stops the bad guy. If it's that story, I'll watch it, even if it's already been watched before countless times, because how cliche it is. I'll try to see for how it is from its own sake because of Sonic.
Yeah, like, it ain't a bad movie. I don't hate it, but at the same time, I'm not like mind blown by it. There's other movies I've seen in the past where I'm like, wow, that's an introduction to a new universe, like with Spider-Man, or Transformers, or Toy Story, or BVS, even if that's like a sequel and not the first movie, or Iron Man, like, or X-Men. Like, those are great ways to introduce us to new characters. Whereas Sonic, the movie itself just feels a bit more like a letdown after seeing Sonic in so many games.
I used to have, these Sony Ericssons that were super tiny?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would play all the time Sonic in that tiny cell phone at school.
Wow.
And it had better dialogue than the movie. No, I'm kidding. I didn't watch the movie. But...
Like, for me, like, my introduction to Sonic with Sonic Heroes was, like, great. Like, I remember the theme song. Like, the gameplay itself is not too bad. The setting is pretty good. The characters were great. Like, the voice acting wasn't too shabby. Sonic Heroes is a great way to learn about Sonic himself. Like, I knew about his characters. I knew, like, Knuckles and Tails. I knew Shadow. I knew Amy. I knew SBO. Like, it was an underrated game, and one that's still, like stuck in my mind since 2007 when I first got the game.
Nice.
So
my introduction was really the game.
Oh yeah.
From the DS.
Yeah, with Mario.
Yeah, with Mario.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have a similar mindset if we get a Mario movie where it feels sort of basic. And honestly, like, I don't really want a Mario movie. Like, I'd much rather just stick with the video games, because as basic as Mario's character is compared to Sonic's, like, what's the movie gonna do? Is it gonna, like, be mind blowing? I doubt it. So I'll stick with Mario Odyssey as a story for our character, because it feels more groundbreaking than a Mario movie would be.
Mario.
But yeah, Sonic movie, I gotta give it like a 7.5, maybe a 7, because like
That's fair.
like it's not like a bad score or anything. And like the
No,
movie
it's
itself,
actually pretty good. It means it's entertaining and above average.
yeah. And I know there's one of my cousins loves Sonic, and I kind of feel bad for saying that the movie isn't as good as I want it to be, but like. Like I'm not even trying to be a dick. Like I just like know Sonic for a good while. Like I know him from Heroes. I know him from other games, and this game just feels like this movie just feels like a carryover from the '90s, but not in like a shitty way. It's just maybe we'll get something better in the sequel.
Let's see how they do it.
Yeah, but overall, it's a fine movie, but not one that I'd go back and rewatch immediately like I would with other films I grew up with and ones I've seen in recent times.
But we will look back at the memes.
Oh,
Yeah.
If you don't remember how that Sonic looked, if we're not going to look back at the movie itself, we gotta at least look back at the memes.
Like honestly,
like to do the movie itself.
yeah, but like honestly, for me at least, like I was so interested in seeing the movie, even with the bad design. I just thought that if you change up the design,
like even when I was verging myself on looking at the trailer, I was still willing to still see if the movie does it as well.
like I was pretty much on board with it still. Like not like oh my god, this is the best thing ever, but like if they change up the design, I'd like it even more. But as it is, like my only problem is just the Sonic's design. Like everything else looks fine. And of course, Gangsta's Paradise from Coolio.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Completely unnecessary to put it even just for the first presentation. They could have made like an epic trailer music for the back, but the film already knew that it wasn't going to be anything serious or it wasn't going to be anything like too, I guess, PG or anything.
Yeah.
They knew the film was going to be fun. So let's put a song that can make it seem hilarious and fun. And they chose Gangsta's Paradise and a good sound.
Yeah, I didn't like an ultra gritty Sonic movie, but I just still feel a little like it's alright with the current Sonic movie. And that concludes today's episode of the Just Us Podcast. Kind of amusing that the first and fourth subject matters are ones that I'm somewhat mixed on, whereas the middle two are ones that we're all happy with, especially Deadpool.
I'm so happy. Even just looking from it today, like I really do want to get back on watching it again, or just even like I just might rewatch the franchise for X-Men and then have Deadpool included sometime soon. So. I like to see it just in the sake of our conversation now, because I haven't had my mind on Deadpool since then.
Yeah, I need to get back on it as well, especially
even
once.
more from Cybertron, because for anyone that listens, if you don't play games or you're not able to play games you wish you can, it doesn't matter. Cutscenes exist.
Yes.
Cutscenes are basically the substitute or the shortcut to having a movie. You don't have to. You want to watch a movie out of your favorite franchise, either film or video game? Cool. Do it by watching cutscenes. I've been doing it for probably 10 years and ongoing at this point. For games that I couldn't even buy, and I still get to watch the story, and I don't even have any spoilers that come through. So I'm probably gonna watch War for Cybertron also.
Right. But if you want to truly experience War for Cybertron, get a copy of the game. Like, try and get it on Steam or try and get it on, like, a retail store.
I want to play the game itself. Even like for me, because like I have a console, so I don't know if I could even buy it unless I just get it from like a recycled or maybe online, someone selling War for Cybertron. But even if I don't get that chance, I'll still watch the cutscenes.
Maybe you can go on EB Games. I think that's your equivalent to GameStocks.
No, it is. So if I ever go to there and then if they, at least if they open it, they're all open, and then they have any recycled Xbox games, then I can be able to play it, make it backwards compatible. I can get a chance, because that'd be cool.
Good idea. And I can't wait to revisit the game for Fall of Cybertron. But that covers today's episode of the JustUs Podcast, and we hope to see you in the next episode. Take care, everybody.